Zoom to pick. Good evening. Hope you're all doing well. Today we are learning Maseches Bava Kama, Daf Yud. Yesterday we learned the Machlokas in regards to the last line of our Mishnah on Daf Testament Bays that we've been trying to figure out, and we saw Machlokas about 2/3 of the way down between Rav Chizda and Rebbe Lazar. Rebbe Lazar there was of the opinion that what our Mishnah meant to teach us is that one is pater on shein and regel within the parameters of our Mishnah. We are starting 7 lines down or so on Yudal and Aleph, and the Gemara is questioning Shitas Rebbe Lazar. So Yudal and Aleph, 6-7 lines down, the Gemara says, Eini, is it possible that Rebbe Lazar is actually correct? Hold on one second. Right. Is it possible that he's correct? After all, how can Rebbe Lazar say that shein and regel are going to be pater? V'hatani Rav Yosef, we have a brisa that was brought by Rav Yosef. In the case of chatzer hashutfim v'hapundak, if we have chatzer hashutfim, we have a field that has partners v'hapundak, or they're partners of an inn, a hotel of some kind. So there, the din was chayiv bahen al hashein ve'al haregel. So that seems like a tiyuvta the Rabbi Elazar, because Rabbi Elazar said you're pater on shein and regel in a case of partnership, and here it seems like you're chayiv on shein and regel in a case of partnership. So says the Gemara, that's not a good question. Amar lach Rabbi Elazar, are you really going to say that that's correct? V'tzizbara, is it logical to follow the brisa of Rabbi Yosef? After all, masnisa milo pligi. We have a brisa that disagrees with Rav Yosef. Rav Yosef was of the opinion in this brisa that there's a chiyuv of shein and regel even where there's a partnership. Rebbe Lazar was of the opinion that when there's a partnership, you're pater from shein and regel. So how can it be that Rebbe Lazar has a good source? Because the Gemara says V'atanya. The Gemara says Arba klalos haya Reb Shimon ben Elazar Omer v'nizakin. The Gemara says that there are 4 klalim that Reb Shimon said that applied in the world of nizakin, and we're going to go through all 4 of them, and one of them is going to be a raya brura for the shita of Rebbe Lazar. Here's what the Gemara says about 12 lines down on Yod Daled Amud Aleph. Number 1 of the 4 klalim, kol shehu rishus lenizak v'lo lemazik, anything that's in the rishus of the one who's damaged and not the one who caused the damage, chayav bakol. You're for sure going to be chayav there, because my animal was the mazik and went into your property. Totally inappropriate. That's not acceptable. And if the animal causes damage, so then you're going to be chayiv. That's obvious. And as well, that's case number 1. Case number 2, lemazik below the nizak. If the damage took place in my property and my animal damaged your property, well, that's your fault. Pater mikol. I'm going to be pater. You shouldn't have brought your little bunny into my Rottweiler cage. Bad idea. So if you bring the animal to the mazik's field, you're going to be chayav, you're going to be pater on everything. That's case number 2. Here's case number 3. Lazeh v'lazeh. Let's say we have a dual ownership. Kigon chatzer hashutfin v'habika pater ba al hashein ve'al haregel. Here we see a brisa that directly supports the shita of Rebbe Lazar. Rebbe Lazar was of the opinion that when we have a shutfis, when we have a partnership, so then there's going to be a p'tur on damages that are done by shein and regel. And here we see a brisa that supports that exact thing, that it's kigon chatzer hashutfin ve'habika pater ba al hashein ve'al haregel. Now, we're not done with the brisa, but we've already learned the part of the brisa that we need. We're still going to finish up the brisa, but we already have what we need to support Rebbe Lazar. And in regards to this case of chatzer hashutfin ve'abika, the brisa expands. Ala negicha, on goring, ve'ala negifa, on pushing, ve'ala neshicha, on biting, ve'ala revitza, on crouching, ve'ala be'ita, on kicking. In all of these cases where there's a shutfis of a chatzer, the Gemara says in the brisa, tam, if the animal that caused the damage was a tam, was not a dangerous animal, so then mishalim chatzi nezek. But had it been a muad, mishalim nezek shalim. All of this is case number 3. Let's move on to case number 4, because as mentioned, this brisa introduced itself as Arba'a Klalos Haya Reb Shimon ben Elazar Omer ben Izakin. We've learned 3. Here's the 4th. Lola zev and Lola zev. Let's say we're dealing with a case where neither the nizak or the mazik own the property. Kigon. Let's say I'm the nizak, I'm the mazik, and you're the nizak, but the damage doesn't happen in either of our fields. Okay, I'm Phil, you're Michael. The damage happens in Gerald's field. Pater. We'll see why in a moment. Sorry, excuse me. Chayev ba'ala shein ve'ala regel. You will be chayev in that case on shein and regel. What would happen in such a case where it's lo lazeh ve'lo lazeh? So it's Ruvain's animal damages Shimon's animal in Levi's field, right? So we have three people involved, but the damage was between Ruvain and Shimon, and it happened on the property of Levi. So in that case, what happens if it's al hanegicha, if the animal is going to be gored, ve'al hanashicha, if there's biting, ve'al hanegifa on pushing, ve'al revitza on squatting, ve'al be'ita on kicking? Similarly, Tamashal Katse Nezek, Muad Mishalem Nezek Shalom. Now, obviously, that Bryson needs a lot of unpacking. However, the line that we're going to extract, the Gemara says, a little bit more than a third of the way down, on the last of the short lines, the Gemara says, Katani Mihas, we see in this Brysa something that's perfect for Rebbe Lazar. Let's review. Rebbe Lazar was of the opinion that if you have partners, Shutfin, that they're going to be putter if the damage that's done in that space is Shein and Regel. So what do we see? Katani Mihas, last of the short lines. We see in the midst of this brisa that Chatzar Shutfin ve'abika Potter ba'ala shein ve'ala regel, just like Rebbe Lazar. So therefore, Rebbe Lazar, we started by a kasha and we said, Aini, how could you say that we have a brisa of Rav Yosef? The Gemara says, don't ask from there because we have a brisa that is completely against Rav Yosef, and therefore Rebbe Lazar is saying. Says the Gemara, if that's true, kasha hadade. How then do we fix the stira within the brisas? We have Rav Yosef's brisa, which seems to say that when there's a partnership, you're going to be, Rav Yosef says that in the brisa you're going to be chayiv. And then we also have the brisa over here where we see that you're going to be putter. So says the Gemara, first of the very long lines, and Yudal and Aleph, Kitanya hahi bechatzer miyuchedes lazeh v'lazeh. We're talking about a field where both people have access. Bein leperos, bein leshvarim. One brisa, that's the brisa where we see that you're going to be putter. That's when everyone's allowed to be there. The fruit is allowed to be there because we both own it, and the shvarim are allowed to be there because we set up our relationship that way. So if damage happens there, it makes perfect sense to say that you'd be putter in such a case. But Ahida Rav Yosef, the brisa of Rav Yosef that says when there's a chatzer shutfin that you're going to be chayiv for damages of shein v'regel, that case was different. That case was bechatzer miyuchedes lepeiros ve'ena miyuchedes leshvarim. That field is okay to have fruit, but it's not okay to have animals there. And in such a case, telagabe shein havi lachatzer hanizak. That in regards to shein, we treat it like the field of the nizak. And if it's the field of the nizak, so then we're going to say that you're chayiv. So we've answered up the brisas. The Gemara brings a beautiful text proof to show us that this is the right way to learn each of these brisas. We're halfway down on your Dal and Amud Aleph. The Gemara says, Dekanami, we can prove this. Tekatani, if you look back in the brisa of Rav Yosef, 5, 6, 7 lines down, it says over there, Chatzar Ashutfim veHapunda. So says the Gemara, Dekatani Hacha Dumya Depundak, just like a hotel. Just like a hotel, the Katani Hasam Dumya Debika. In regards to the brisa of Rav Yosef, it says that it's like a pundak. You're not allowed to bring horses into a pundak. However, the brisa that was quoted later with the Arba Klalos of Reb Shimon ben Elazar, that says it's Dumya Debika, where animals are allowed. I don't know if you heard about this flight. I think it was a flight from JFK where they were traveling with a horse underneath and the horse got loose in the cargo bay. That's not a place for horses. That's not, I mean, conceptually, it shouldn't be one where they roam around. I don't know how you travel with horses, but that's what happened on the plane. They turned the plane around and brought it back to JFK. So that's not a place. So the Gemara says that's a raya over here. It's a pundak. That's Rav Yosef's brisa. When their partnership is on a hotel, that's not a place for horses. Masha'en Kain, in regards to the second brisa, that is a place for horses because it says Dumya Debika. That's a place that's outside in public. Shmami, know that we're correct. Asks the Gemara, wait 1 second. 4 lines into the wide lines. Maske Florab Zera. Kevan de miyuchedes leperos. If in fact this field is miyuchedes leperos and damage happened there, if everyone agrees that these fields are owned by both of them, so then it shouldn't be that there's any chiyuv, because the only time that there should be a chiyuv is uvir bistei acher. This is a gzeras hakasuv, that you're not chayiv in tashlum and you're not chayiv in any payments if it all happens in the field that you both own. It has to happen somewhere else. Says the Gemara, Amar le Abaye, Kevan de'ena miyuchedes l'shvarim. You're right that the field was acceptable. You and I agree to bring fruits there. However, says the Gemara, this was not acceptable for animals, and therefore, because animals should not have been there, sadeh acher karina bay, and therefore you're going to be held accountable. So Amar le Rav Achami difti l'Ravina lema. If this is true, midibas nisa lo pligi. If we're able to answer up the brisas in a way where there's no arguing, maybe we should unravel what we thought was a machlokes Rav Chizda and Rebbe Lazar on the bottom of Yud Gimel Amud Beis. Because remember, yesterday we learned, and today we're chazering this sugya. When you have shutfin, do we say that there's a chiyuv on avos nezikin of shein and regel? Yes or no? Rav Chizda says yes, or Rebbe Lazar says no. But if we just answered up the two brisas that are the precedent for each of those shitas, and we said that there's no machlokes, then perhaps, says the Gemara, 2/3 of the way down, amorai nami lo pligi. Perhaps there's no machlokes at all between Rav Chizda and Rebbe Lazar. Amar le, it's very possible that that's true. It's possible that we mislearned the Gemara, and not that we mislearned it, but that the Gemara didn't need to present this as a machlokes. Not only that, the intim salomar pligi, even if you wanted to say that they argued, perhaps it's not on the level of the brisas, but rather bekusha de Reb Zera u bepiruka de Abaye pligi. Perhaps they're arguing about the question that Reb Zera asked about the field being miyuchedes leperos and ubir v'steacher. There we could find some wiggle room that in theory they could have a machlokas, but lav dafka that there is a machlokas between Reb Chizda and Rebbe Lazar. Now, what precipitated a lot of this discussion was a brisa that quoted 4 parts. That's the brisa that we started with earlier. We're now going to quote that brisa again, 2/3 of the way down, gufa, first word on the line, and analyze pieces of it to help us try and understand who the author of that brisa is. The Gemara says, gufa. Arba klalos hayar Reb Shimon ben Elazar omer ben Nizakin. We said that there are 4 general rules that apply in regards to the world of Nizakin. Number 1, Kolshu reshus lenizak below the mazik. If the damage happens in the field of the nizak, the one that gets damaged, so then chayiv bakol, the mazik's animal should not have been there. You should not be going into people's fields and causing damage, and therefore the Gemara says you're going to be chayiv. Now the Gemara picks up on a unique language. It doesn't say, it says chayiv bakol, and the Gemara makes a diuk and says al hakol loktani. It doesn't say you're chayiv on everything, meaning Keren, Shane, Regel, all the various avos. Rather, alochayev bakol, you're chayev in the full cost. What does that mean? The kule nezek sounds like that it's tashlumin in full. It's not chazi nezek, but it's nezek shalem. So who would say that in such a case you're chayev nezek shalem? The chora, even if the animal's a tam. Who says that? Money, who's the author of that shita, 3/4 of the way down, 12 lines from the bottom. Reb Tarfon Omer. The Amar Mishuna Keren B'Chatzer Hanizak, that a Mishuna, an animal that's tam, that causes damage of Keren in the Chatzer of the Nizak, Nezek Shalem Mishalem. That's the sheet of Reb Tarfon. So maybe we have an author of our Mishnah about the Arba Klalos. Perhaps the author is Reb Tarfon. Says the Gemara, not so fast. Why? Because Ema Seifa. The Seifa says something a little bit different. Lo lazeh v'lo lazeh. The Seifa, the second case we had learned in our Mishnah, taught us Kegon Chatzer She'ena Shal Shnehem, that if Reuven and Shimon have damage between one another, but the damage happens in a field that nobody owns, we had said Chayev Ba'ala Shein Ve'ala Regel. So what is that case of Lo Lazeh V'lo Lazeh? Says the Gemara, My Lo Lazeh V'lo Lazeh. Ilei Ma Lo Lazeh V'lo Lazeh. Klal Ela De'acher. If you want to say that the field where the damage happened doesn't belong to me, the mazik, or to you, the nizak, if that's true, well, then there's no isser. If I'm Ruvain and you're Shimon and the damage happened in Levi's field, that doesn't work. But uvir b'stei acher, the leka. We haven't triggered the proper way of bringing about nizakin. So therefore, says the Gemara, Elapshita, what must it be when it says lo lazeh v'lo lazeh ela dechad? It must be that it didn't belong to both of them, but rather it only belonged to one of them. The Ketani Seifa, what there does the Seifa say? It depends. Tam Mishalim Chatzin Nezek Mu and Mishalim Nezek Shalem. So therefore, it seems from over here that is not the Shita of Reb Tarfon. So the Gemara says, if that's true, then Asa and the Rabbanon. Then maybe the dissenting opinion, those who argue with Reb Tarfon, say that they are the author of our Mishnah. The Amre, they say, Mishuna Karen Bechatzer Hanizak, Chatzi Nezek Hu de Mishalim. So says the Gemara, it seems clear that one part of the Mishnah We have 4 klalim. The first one's like Reb Tarfon, and this next one of lo lazeh v'lo lazeh seems to be like the Rabbanon. And the Gemara doesn't like doing that. So the Gemara asks 5, 6 lines from the bottom. Make that 7 lines from the bottom. Reisha Reb Tarfon v'Seifa Rabbanon. Are we really going to be okay with the fact that the Reisha is the sheet of Reb Tarfon and the Seifa is the sheet of the Rabbanon? We try to avoid that. We want to keep a Mishnah Kaftor Referachim clear. So the Gemara says, it's very possible that the Arba Klalos and the Brisa are broken up by different authors. No reason why that can't be. And the Gemara says, to Ha'amar le Shmuel Rabbi Yehuda, out of context, the Gemara tells us a story about Shmuel talking to Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda was his Talmud. And he says, Shinuna, sharp one, a term of endearment, which means that you're very bright. Shivok mas nisan, stop learning what you're doing with Tabasrai, come with me. I want to show you Reisha Reb Tarfon b'Sefer Rabbanon. So what do we see? That Shmuel was telling Rabbi Yehuda that yes, it is possible that the Reisha is Reb Tarfon and the Seifa is the Rabbanon. So that's a possibility. However, there's another possibility. There's another way to understand the Arba Klalos based on what we've been learning. And the Gemara says, Ravina Mishmei de Rava Omar, Kula Reb Tarfoni. It's possible that all 4 Klalim are really Reb Tarfon. How would Reb Tarfon answer the Brisa? Umay lo lazeh v'lo lazeh. What then did he mean by saying that the field belonged to no one? Perhaps it was a little bit different. Lo lazeh v'lo lazeh lepeiros ela dechad. Only one person of the 2. If I have a partnership with you, maybe only you can bring fruits there. But lazeh v'lazeh l'shvarim. The legabe shein havi l'chatzer hanizak legabe keren havi l'lushus harabim. There is a possibility that we can understand the Brisa in full according to Reb Tarfon, and it would still be Nezek Shalom. So 2 ways to understand this Brisa. Approach number 1 is that it's piecemeal. The first part of the Brisa is like Reb Tarfon. The second part is like the Rabbanon. And then the second answer of Ravina is that no, the whole Mishnah is like Rabbi Tarfon. Ihachi says the Gemara, if that's true, if you analyze our Brisa clearly, according to this second approach, then it's really Arba. Then really the same idea is being reflected twice, which is that you have to pay Nezek Shalem. So then really Shlosha Havu. It really should only be then that there's only 3 rules and not 4, because 2 of your rules teach the same thing in the Bryce of Arba Klalos, which is what? Which is that there is a Nezek Shalem. So therefore, says the Gemara, you're right. Amar of Nachman Bar Yitzchak, turning to the top of Yudalad Amud Beis, we're going to be going about halfway down on Tesvav Amud Aleph. We'll pick up the rest on Shabbos. The Gemara says, you're right. It's Shlosha Klalos, Be'arba'a Mikomos. It's 3 principles that apply out in 4 cases, and that is an appropriate answer. This brings us to the next Mishnah on Yudalad Amud Beis, on the very top line. This Mishnah is difficult to understand without Gemara. Thank God we have the Gemara. But with the Gemara, it's actually pretty easy to understand. Let's jump in. The Mishnah says, Shum Kesef, we evaluate with dollars. Shvei Kesef, we can pay with an equivalent of dollars. Bifnei Bezdin, it has to be done in front of a Bezdin. Ve'alpi Bezdin, and in accordance with Bezdin. Again, all these phrases require commentary. It has to be B'nei Chorin, people who are free. It has to be B'nei Bris, people who are seemingly Jewish. Women are included in the damages. And again, all of these phrases, basically all of these phrases are cryptic. So let's jump in on Yudal Amud Beis, 4 lines down at the open of the Gemara, to figure out a little bit about what Rabbi Yehuda Nasi was trying to pack into this Mishnah. My shum kesef, what does it mean that we evaluate with money? The Gemara says, Amar Rabbi Yehuda, shum zeh lo yehei ela bekesef. That when we make payment assessments for damages, we only do it in dollars. We don't do it in, oh, this is worth a couch, this is worth 3 cows. No, it's only going to be an assessment based on dollars. And says the Gemara as follows. This we saw already. Tanina lahad tanu rabbanan. We actually saw this already in a brisa. Look at this case. Para shehizika talis. Let's say you're walking through the farm and you drop your talis on the ground, and the cow eats it, or vice versa. The talis shehizika para. Sounds like a little bit of a not so strong cow, but over here you throw your talis, the strings wrap around the legs of the talis, the animal falls and breaks itself, gets an injury. In both of these cases, ein omrim teitze para betalis vitalis bepara. We don't pay things. We don't pay the talis with a cow and the cow with the talis. Elashamino sabedamim. We have to come up with a dollar amount. We are not using any other currencies other than money. We don't do like gold bars. We don't do silver coins. It's dollars and cents of whatever the currency is of the day. So that's the first part of the mission of Shum Kesef, that when we determine how much you owe, we are assessing specifically with dollars and with nothing else. The Gemara then says Shvei Kesef, that there has to be an equivalence of money. What does this mean? The Tanu Rabbanon. Shvei Kesef, what do we mean that there has to be an equal in regards to money? That Bezdin is only going to be measuring and taking payments from properties that have achrayas, namely karka. Karka has a lien built into it, and therefore that's how we measure. Aval, im kadam nizak v'tafas metaltalin. Let's say that I was the one who was damaged, and you're the one who damaged. And I like the bicycle you have on your property that's worth $800, and you owe me $800. So I take your bicycle, even though that's not the right way to do things. Really, we should be going through karka, not through metaltalin. But if I took it, metaltalin, the Gemara says, Bezdin govin lo mehen, counts. It counts. It's not the right way to do things, but it counts. Amar Mar, hold on one second. We just learned in the Brisa, Shvei Kesef, Malami Chein Bezdin is Kakinel and Nechasim Sheish Achrayas. We learned that it has to be that we use karka. My mashma, says the Gemara, what does this come to teach us? Amar Rabba Bar Ula, Davar Hashave Kol Kesef, something that is worth all money. My nihu, Davar She'ein Lo Ona'ah. That has to be talking about something that has no Ona'ah on it. What is the Isser of Ona'ah? The Isser of Ona'ah is overcharging. If I'm selling you my car, my coat, my anything, my computer, it doesn't matter. I have rules. I cannot charge above 1/6 of the market price. Not allowed. But that's not true with land. Lucky for the real estate agents among us, you can sell a piece of property for whatever will go. Location, location, location. You get the right house on the right block. The market says 400, but you know that the Jew is going to pay a little bit more to live on that block. It's a good block. So when they sold me my house on Chase Avenue, 40-foot lot with a driveway, this was 7 years ago. She's like, look, 400,000. I'm like, 375. She's like 400. I'm like, okay, I'll take it. She went with what Zillow said and what all the websites said. She misread the market because she didn't know that a Yid was going to buy her house. Parenthetically, I get mail to her from the PLO frequently. Great writing, stellar writing. They did a very good job on the writing. Sheker v'chaza, but the mail is still coming to the house. Okay, we'll discuss that another time. So the Gemara says, what does it mean over here that we're doing Shvei Kesef? It means that it has to be a property that has no Onah. What is the kind of thing that sells without an upper limit of price, without the Yisra of Onah? That's Karka. Says the Gemara, yeah, but there are other things that also don't have Onah in them. Avadim v'shtaros nami ein lehen Onah. You can buy a lot of things without Onah. So perhaps, maybe our Mishnah should include avadim and shtaros. So the Gemara says you're absolutely right. Amar Rabba Bar Ula, davar hanikne bekesef, that which is purchased with money, referencing a field. Says the Gemara, why is purchasing something with money referencing a field? Avadim and shtaros nami nikne bekesef. So the Gemara pivots for the third time. Amar Ravashi shvei kesef v'lo kesef. It's something that is worth money, but isn't itself money. What is that? That is karka. Bahani kulu kesef ninu. So this is what we're looking for. We're looking for something that's worth money, but that isn't money, and we typically call that land. Land was the currency of the day, and that is how we measured we did our calculus with the karka in order to determine how much money was owed. Halfway down on Yodal and Amid, the Gemara says, Rami le Rav Yehuda bar Chinana le Rav Huna bereid Rav Yoshua. We have a problem. Tana, we just learned. Shvei Kesef Malame Chain Bezdin Nizkakin El Nechasim Sheshtan Achrayas. That really Bezdin only tries to work with the currency of karka. Tanya, hold on one second. How can you say that we are only talking about Kesef? After all, Tanya, 2/3 of the way down, we learned in a brisa, Yashiv. I think this is the third time we're seeing this. Yashiv l'rabo shvei kesef afilu subin. That you're allowed to pay even with bran, which is animal food. So says the Gemara, what are we dealing with? Biyasme. That's true when we're talking about biyasme, that that's when they can pay with karka if the father passes away and the money goes down to the Yisomim. So then we do karka there. Says the Gemara, Ibi Yasme, if that's true, a Maseifa, then I don't understand the end of the Mishnah. What does the end of the Mishnah say? That in Kadam Nizak B'Tafas Metaltalin, Bezim Govin Lo Mehed. That if I go and steal the bike, so then the Gemara says that actually counts. And Ibi Yasme, if that's true, Amai Bezdin Govin Lo Mehen, why would they allow that to take place at all? That shouldn't work at all by Yisomim. Says the Gemara, Keda Amar Rava Amar Rav Nachman, Shetafas Mechayim. We're talking about the fact that the father, who subsequently passed away, owed money to, let's say, Reuben, the father, owed money to Shimon, his friend. And right before he passed away, Shetafas Mechayim, Shimon, the friend, grabbed the bike off the lawn. While the guy is still alive, no problem. Once the father dies, then even b'di'eved, you cannot take metaltalin from the Yisomim. Al-Chanami Shetafas Mechayim, that must be what's happening here with the Yisomim as well. Says the Gemara, 8 lines or so from the bottom on your Dalet Amud Beis. Let's continue. The Gemara says, Bifnei Bezdin. What do you mean, Bifnei Bezdin? That these rules take place only in front of Bezdin. Prat lemocher nechasav ve'achar kach holech lebezdin. What if a person sells all of his property and then he goes to Bezdin? So says the Gemara, that case doesn't fall to the regular rules of Nezikin. Asks the Gemara, wait 1 second. Shma mina, that seems to imply that love, if a person borrows money, umachar nechasav, and then he sells everything he owns, ve'achar kach bala Bezdin, ein Bezdin govin lo mehet. You're saying we found a loophole that as long as I sell off my properties before I go to Bezdin, I don't have to pay back anything? Ella, says the Gemara, you're right. That when our Mishnah says Bifnei Bezdin, it's not precluding a case of Mocher Nechasav, but rather Prat LeBezdin Hedyotos. We cannot adjudicate these cases with a regular Bezdin. We need to have a sophisticated Bezdin. We do Ataras Nadarim with a Bezdin Shel Hedyotos. Goons like us sit behind a table in this room and they, mutter lach, mutter lach, mutter lach. We don't know anything about anything when it comes to halachos about Ataras Nadarim. For some reason, the Chachamim allow us to be a Bezdin Shel Hedyotos. Not here. When we're dealing with Nezikin, we have to have a Bezdin Chashuv of Talmidei Chachamim Dayanim, not regular people. Next sugya, 4 or 5 lines from the bottom, Al Pi Eidim, that there need to be witnesses. Says the Gemara, and I'm just going to be open and honest with you, these next 5 lines need 5 hours. It's a Shas sugya that requires research. You've heard of it before. But says the Gemara as follows: Prat lemode b'knas ve'achar kach bo edim shu pater. What is being precluded of edim? That if a person was mode b'knas, he admitted that he owed money, and then afterwards edim showed up to say that he's chayev shu pater. So says the Gemara, that's great. Hanicha leman da'amar mode b'knas ve'achar kach bo edim pater. Then I can understand your exception that if you're mode b'knas, then the edim don't matter. But according to the Shita that doesn't agree with your presumption, what then would we say is the preclusion of our Mishnah? Says the Gemara, don't worry. Seifa itzrichalei, we still need this din for the Seifa. Turning to the top of Tesvav Amud Aleph, as mentioned, a little bit more than halfway down is where we're going to stop at the 2 dots. The Gemara says, what was the Seifa? B'nei choren u'b'nei bris. What does it mean, b'nei choren b'nei bris? B'nei choren lemeute avadim, to teach us that an eved cannot be an aid in this case. He cannot be an aid at all in this case. And as well, b'nei bris lemeute ovdei kochavim. B'nei bris means that we don't rely on your average Joe. We need the person to be a yid. He can't be an oved kochavim. V'tzricha, we need both of these dinim. We need the din of b'nei choren lemeute avadim, and b'nei bris lemeute ovdei kochavim. Why? V'tzricha. Diyashmin an eved. If I only had the case of eved, that an eved is not allowed mishum de'ein lo yachas. Perhaps there because an eved has a uniqueness to him that whoever the eved's father was, we don't even halachically associate his father with him. Aval nachri de yesh lo yachas emalo. A nachri, while he remains a nachri, his father is still his father. If he becomes a ger, that changes because now he's no longer a goy. But on its face, when you have 2 goyim, father and son, the din is that they do have a relationship. So therefore, emalo. I might have thought that difference would have been enough of a reason to assume that perhaps only an eved is precluded from being an aid, but ovdei kochavim, are considered to be valid Eidim. V'yashmin nachri, but if I would have only had the case of Ovdei Kochavim, that's mishum delo shayach b'mitzvos. If I would have only taught that they're not allowed to be an aid, maybe that's because Ovdei Kochavim don't have mitzvos. Interesting comment, by the way, because yes, they do. But seemingly, we don't care about the Noahide laws, the Sheva Mitzvos B'nai Noah. What? And Dinim is one of them. So it's a shtickle chiddush of the Gemara. I didn't look into this, but it's a little bit mechudash to say that a goy doesn't have mitzvos. Real Balabatish answer is it's before the Sheva Mitzvos B'nai Noah, but I don't even think that's a thing. Was there ever a time that the rules didn't apply? I don't think so. Anyways, I don't know the answer. I'm just raising the question. So, because by a nachri they don't have mitzvos, aval eved shayach b'mitzvos emalo, therefore tzricha. We're not sure, says the Gemara, how we would have thought about a nachri if I only taught eved, and how I would have thought about an eved if I only taught nachri in regards to them being edim. Now, all of this precludes other major halachic issues of whether or not they can testify because they're goyim. One of them is a goy. An eved is not a regular person. An eved and an ish are often in the same categories that relates to edus. The Gemara discusses none of that here, but nevertheless, that's what the Gemara says in regards to the tzrichusa. So then the Gemara, the Brisa taught us earlier about noshim bichlal hanezek, that women, this was the mission on the top of Yadal and Mabez that we're quoting here, that women are included in the world of nezikin. Says the Gemara, min nohani mili. How do you know that women are included in the world of nezikin? We know that there are some halachos that don't apply to women. So mehecha teisi that this is one that does apply to women. The Gemara provides 3 responses. 6-7 lines down, answer number 1. Amar Rav Yehuda Mara, the Chaim Tana debate Rav Yishmael. Amar Akra, the pasuk says, "Isha ki yasu mikol chatos," that if a man or a woman does something wrong, that they have to bring a chatos. The din is that they can both bring the chatos. And the Gemara explains, Hishva kasuv isha leish lachol onshin sheba Torah, that when it comes to the world of onshin, women are obligated in onshin just like men. That includes the world of nezikin. Answer number 1. Answer number 2, 8-9 lines down. Debei Rabbi Elazar Tana, ve'ela mishpatim asher tasim lifneihem. Hishvei hakasav isha leish b'chol dinin sheba Torah. From the pasuk of Eila mishpatim lifneihem, in front of both of them, men and women, both men and women are chayev in mishpatim. And nezikin is in the world of mishpatim, it's in the world of bezdin, so you'd be held accountable. Third answer, of course, we're going to discuss why we need all 3 answers. And the Gemara says, as a third answer, about a quarter of the way down, the Bechizkiah Rabbi Yossi Aglidi Tana, the 2 of them taught Amar Kra, Behemis Ish O Isha, that a man or a woman will be killed. And this was talking about a case of an animal that's a shor hamua. And if you're a shomer, if you're responsible for this animal and you do a trash job of watching the animal and it kills someone, the pasuk says you're held accountable, man or woman. What does the Gemara say here? Same. When it comes to Misa, you're going to be held accountable. And therefore, by Nezikin, you're also going to be held accountable. Fine. Let's ask why. Why did we need all 3 of these psukim? Why do we have the pasuk of Ish Isha Sher Kiyas Ish O Isha Kiyas Mikol Chatas? Why do we have the pasuk of Eila Mishpatim? And why do we have the pasuk of Hemis Ish O Es Haisha O Haisha? B'tzrichi. Third of the way down. Di'iyashmin and Kamaisa. If I only had the first pasuk, which speaks about a korban chatas, Pasamu Dechas Rachmana Allah. Maybe only by the korban chatas the Torah included a woman to be chas on her, because it's not fair that she shouldn't have the opportunity to get kapara. So Kadosh Baruch Hu said, normally we wouldn't include a woman in these kinds of onshin, but because we wanted her to be able to get kapara, Kadosh Baruch Hu was a chas, and he included a woman in regards to a chatas. Aval dinin, when it comes to regular halachos of dinin of halachos by a bezdin, ish debar masa umatan id. Men who are learned, they can be involved. Ishalo, but a woman should not be involved. So therefore, we needed to have more than just that one pasuk. V'yashmin and dinin, if we only had the second pasuk, which is the pasuk of mishpatim, which is dinin, so there, maybe there, the only reason we allowed her to be a part of this is so that she can have chiyusa, she can be part of society. She can go shopping, she can run a business, whatever the case may be. Aval kapara, but when it comes to the world of kapara, that's pasuk number 1. When it comes to the world of kapara, There, ish de bar mitzvah in, isha de la bar mitzvah lo. Men who are chayiv in all mitzvos, maybe they get to do the chatas, but women not. So therefore, we needed the pasuk by the chatas. V'yashmin and hani tarte. If you want to say that I had pasuk number 1 by the chatas and pasuk number 2 by mishpatim, and those two have their uniquenesses. Hacha mishum kapar, vacha mishum chiyusa. Katala. But when it comes to katala, to the pasuk of umeis, when that behemis isha, ish o isha, there ish de bar mitzvah, l'shalem kofer isha lo. Then maybe the halacha would be different by katala. And v'yashmin and kofer, if you want to say that last pasuk where there's going to be a payment of kofer because we don't actually kill the owners for their animal killing a person, we make them pay money. That's mishum de'ika ibud neshama, because there was a severe case over there where my lack of care of that shor hamuad killed a person. Aval hani tarte deleka ibud neshama. But in regards to the first two psukim by achatas and by mishpatim where nobody died, a malo. Therefore, tzricha, we need all 3 psukim to ensure that we know that women are going to be chayiv in nezikin in the same exact way that men will be chayiv in nezikin. Here's Hashem on Shabbos. We'll pick up at 2:50 p.m. right after the early mincha. At these 2 dots, 2/3 of the way down. Wishing you all a beautiful night.